Hey everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk about how self-sabotage does not exist. Self-sabotage is a term often used in pop psychology or self-development, mindset, coaching or therapy. And even though to a degree this term can be valid to use in certain contexts, I would say as a whole and from a greater perspective, it's actually flawed. And I'm going to explain how and why that is in today's video. Now, self-sabotage would be true if we were purely observing the struggle that someone's going through, the act that does entail the sabotage component of it, purely from the surface. So this means if I am observing someone else that, let's say, is taking a lot of drugs, alcohol, is starting fights and creating drama, any forms of self-sabotage, if I'm just observing the behavior from the surface, then I can come to the rationale that, okay, this person is clearly making their life worse. They're doing something that creates more suffering, more stress, more drama, puts them in a negative state, puts them in a state where they're disempowered. So they are the ones who are sabotaging themselves. Okay, or if I am observing myself on the surface. So this would happen when we don't have a deeper insight as to what is generating these surface layer manifestations of these behaviors or these feelings and these things that we're doing that aren't serving us and are sabotaging our life and the positive things that we want to achieve out of life and the empowered state that we want to be in. So if we're just observing these behaviors on the surface, we can come to that rationale that I'm sabotaging myself. I'm self-sabotaging, right? So look, within that context, it's valid, it's very understandable how we can come to that conclusion and we can make that judgment on someone else or on ourselves. But it's simply not true to use as the complete way to describe what is actually happening there when someone is performing these behaviors or procrastinating in a disempowered state, whatever that may be. And this is the reason why. The reason why is because we don't intentionally sabotage ourselves to make our lives worse. And this is kind of the notion that self-sabotage is claiming, that you are intentionally making your life worse. You are intentionally putting yourself in this disempowered state and running these loops and patterns to create more suffering in your life. And even though an element of that is true, yes, you are the one who is creating this disempowered state, this outcome in your life. You are the one who is performing these types of behaviors. What it fails to shine a light on is that we don't intentionally do this to ourselves, or at least if we do, we have a positive intention behind it. Okay, now self-sabotage, it may create this notion that you are intentionally making your life worse and there's no positive intention for why you're doing it. Whereas when we put aside the label on these types of behaviors as self-sabotage, we can begin to see how these various behaviors actually have a positive intention behind it. And that's when we can get a deeper insight to the underlying dynamics of these surface layer manifestations that you're struggling with. And this is because our body, our mind, the divine intelligence that is circulating through every single cell in our body just simply would not seek to work against us. Everything that it does is to work for us. Now, that's not to say that how it's working for us is actually working for us, but that's what its intention is. And on a subconscious level, without our conscious awareness, we could be running a set of rules. Think of it as a set of code that is programming us to try and work for us with a positive intention to meet our basic human needs in a way that isn't creating that positive outcome. Okay, and that happens all the time. It's like deep down we have a positive intention for why we're doing these things, but that doesn't mean it's creating a positive outcome. And this is the difference between intention and outcome. We can have a positive intention, but that doesn't mean it creates a positive outcome. And just because it doesn't create a positive outcome, that doesn't mean that we have a negative intention behind it. And this is really important for you to understand, because it's very common that when people are running these sort of patterns that aren't creating these positive outcomes, that they begin to believe that they have a negative intention towards themselves. Let's just talk a bit about how that could be a dangerous perspective to have of yourself. Because already then, you become more conflicted towards yourself. You begin to resent yourself a whole lot more. You don't trust yourself as much. And you probably begin to start hating yourself and begin fighting yourself. Now, this is when people can get into these arguments in their own mind. They begin to judge and criticize themselves excessively, which leads to more inner turmoil and more, a lot less self-love, okay, and acceptance. Let's be honest. It's probably going to be a lot more of a stressful experience internally within you, living with that. And no doubt it's probably going to be projected out at others in some way, and spread out into your relationships and probably every single aspect of your life, your health, your well-being. Not a good time, right? So the intention behind this video is for you to begin to be curious as to what the underlying dynamics are behind these surface layer manifestations of these behaviors, these actions, this lack of actions, this disempowered state that isn't creating a positive outcome for you. And rather just judging it on the surface like, I am self-sabotaging, seek to understand how these are actually strategies attempting to preserve you, to protect you, to assist you in coping in some way, because that's exactly what they are. Think of these surface layer manifestations as adaptations that were most likely formed in the past at a time where it was actually very valuable for you to run that adaptation, because that's all you knew what to do at that time in order to meet your basic human needs of feeling safe, secure, loved, accepted, to escape danger. That's all you knew how to do at that time, or that's all that was shown to you at that time by those around you that you were looking up to, whether it be your parents, caregivers, extended family, schooling system, society, religious ideologies, culture, whatever it was. And the thing is, when these adaptations are formed during that time as a way to help us in meeting these basic human needs that we all have, it means that they can be familiar for us to use, run on autopilot, particularly when we are faced with a similar situation where our basic human need may be at threat or in jeopardy, or we feel unsafe, insecure, we don't feel accepted, whatever it may be in the future as an adult. Let me give you an example. I work with a lot of coaches and aspiring coaches, people that are in the self-development space, healers, nutritionists, all these people that have aspirations to expand their business. And a lot of the time they experience being in a freeze response, feeling stuck, procrastinating, and avoiding certain tasks to grow and expand their business. And for those people that are really judging and criticizing themselves on the surface for being stuck, because they're like in their head going, I know what I have to do, and I know I have all this wisdom to share with people, and I want to grow, I want to be financially independent, and all this financially free, and all this sort of stuff. They may fail to understand how that freeze response, which they may label as I'm sabotaging my life and my future business and my goals and my dreams, is actually an attempt to protect them from, example, failing, being judged by others, posting up social media content, being seen and criticized. And why could they have this deep fear that they are using this freeze response to protect them from? Well, because when they were young, perhaps whenever they got anything wrong, they were judged and criticized heavily by their parents. They had to be perfect. So they built this perfectionism program that, even though it has a positive intention to get you to do everything perfectly and correctly so that you can be accepted by others, it can actually be quite detrimental, because, if you don't believe that you can actually do it perfectly, well, you're not going to try at all. And we all know what having that type of a mindset is like when it comes to business. You're just going to not go anywhere, because the key is really to just get started and embrace failures along the way and take it as feedback and learn and adapt and grow. And that's the pathway that we really have to take, and we have to accept that as a part of the human experience. So that experience that that individual had when they were younger, and it was just so painful for them to be judged and criticized and love being withheld from them. Like, I've had people say that whenever they didn't succeed 100%, that they would get ignored by their parents. Like, they would just kind of shut down and withhold love from them. So and this perfectionism program, as an example, it can manifest from so many different things. So don't sit there going, but I'm stuck in a freeze response, but I wasn't spoken like that to my parents. They loved me no matter what when I was young. Well, it can manifest in another way. I've had someone who's procrastinating their business, the exact same surface layer manifestation, but only it was because their parents were actually too accepting and easygoing with them growing up, that it's like no matter what kind of amount of effort or work that they produced as a child, the parents would always say, yeah, it's good, it's fine, you're doing great. And actually the child, them as a child, didn't get enough healthy criticism or guidance and support to be like, come on, you can do better, and pushing them to achieve more. So they lacked getting that experience when they were young. So now as an adult, they're just like, I don't need to do anything. I can just, fucking sit around and I'm fine just the way I am. When really another part of them is going, well, no, actually you got to get fucking shit done, right? So these surface layer manifestations can stem from anything. Now, another example I'm going to use, and I'm going to use something a little bit more hectic, is let's say someone who goes out every weekend, gets fucked up, alcohol, even takes some drugs, stays up late at night, eats, shitty food, sleeps in all Sunday, feels crap about themselves, blows a lot of their money that they worked really hard for during the week. And this is just a loop that they're in for, they've been in for perhaps years. Now, on the surface, we can observe that person and go, they're sabotaging themselves, Or they could even do that to themselves. Every Sunday they wake up like, oh, fuck, I'm self-sabotaging. Whereas if we were to inquire and just ask the part of them who values going out, taking the alcohol, drugs, staying up late at night, we can get some more information as to what their positive intention is. And this is something I've worked with loads of different clients. And a few things that have come up for me with exploring this with many different people is, first of all, the alcohol is used as a form of medication to reduce the stress that they feel from social anxiety, from being in a place, a social space where they don't feel safe, and they get all these thoughts and all these kind of negative thoughts where they're judging themselves and really self-conscious about how they look and what they're saying. So therefore they use the alcohol as a form of medication to reduce those thoughts so that they can be more present. So that's one example. Another reason that they can be, going out late at night, doing this every week, is because when they go out and they party and they're in this environment, they actually use it as a way to gain a sense of validation from other people. They go to the cool spots, hang out with the cool people, and by doing that and socializing and mingling with these types of people that are in the party scene, it gives them a sense that they are worthy, they're good enough. They get to dress up, be seen by others, and that gives them a sense of validation that they are worthy and that they are good enough. So even though there's a negative outcome that's detrimental to their health, well-being, their goals, their financial goals, all this sort of stuff, we really got to see how that behavior actually has a positive intention behind it, and it's attempting to meet a need for them that they are struggling to be able to meet themselves. Now, this is where we can get into how do we move forward from these patterns of self-sabotage, and that is, first of all, you got to understand the deeper underlying dynamics that are driving these surface layer manifestations. Because if you don't understand what it is, what it's trying to give you, where it comes from, how are you going to change it? Okay, otherwise you're just going to keep judging it on the surface. You may make a few links like, oh, maybe it's because I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I drink a lot because my dad drank a lot and I just saw him. We really got to make some stronger links, and that's more personal to you, where you can get some deeper realizations as to what the roots are and how it's driving, how it's absorbing energy and driving it up to the leaves and creating this outcome for you in your life today that isn't serving you. So you first got to be curious, you got to understand where it comes from, and then from there we can start to create a container of self-compassion. When you understand where it comes from, you're going to be a lot less judgmental towards yourself. You're not going to be criticizing yourself so much excessively. You're going to be like, okay, no, I understand where it comes from. And this is what I had to do with all my addictions and the patterns that I was running, that when I would first run them, I would think that there's something wrong with me. I'm like, fuck, I'm fucked up, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. When I just started to understand it, I'm like, fuck, that's why I did it. Oh wow, because when I was 8 years old that happened, and it makes sense, and I've continued to use it as a way to self-medicate and self-soothe since that moment. And now the next thing that you do once you have that understanding and you've built that container of self-compassion, because you get it, you get where it comes from, that's when you can work towards healing those core wounds, processing them, digesting them. Because you got to understand these, surface layer manifestations, these self-sabotage, they're just autopilot programs that are being used as a way to cope, to manage that pain that you haven't processed yet. So once you can heal more of that pain, digest and process that trauma, that wound that's there, well then the value of running that self-sabotage program is going to reduce, because now you haven't got as much pain that you got to try and cope with or manage or suppress in your general day-to-day life. So therefore, the compulsion that you have to run these sort of behaviors from that point is going to minimize. So that's really important to do as well. And by doing that, we're actually cultivating more safety, more security within ourselves, more confidence, without, let's say, using alcohol as a way to reduce the thoughts. By healing those core wounds that have made you believe that you're not good enough, you're going to walk into a social situation and not get as many of those thoughts. Therefore, the value in drinking to reduce those thoughts isn't going to be there as much. So that's a huge part of it. And the next part of the process is, after you've experienced that healing, you got to commit yourself to a process of reparenting yourself. So this means that through every different stage of the compulsion that you have to perform the behavior, once you're in the behavior and after the behavior, you have an approach towards yourself where you can support yourself however you need it. That's going to help you either regulate your nervous system before you perform that behavior, therefore reducing the chance that you have to performing it, or once you're in the behavior, again, how you can support yourself throughout that, so that even once you've started, it's like, it's not the end of the world. It's like, I've started, I've relapsed, that's it. It's a write-off, I'm back at square one. Rather like, okay, I've kind of relapsed, I've done that behavior again, or I'm kind of stuck in that freeze response, I'm not taking action on something. It's okay, it's fine, understand why I'm here. Like, just being able to support yourself once you're in the thick of it. Because I've got news for you, breaking down these patterns and these programs, it's very rarely just like a bang and you're done. This is a reconditioning process, and you got to be able to support yourself throughout all the different parts of it. In the next part, including after it. So generally, after people have performed these types of behaviors that they've labeled self-sabotage for so long, is then they'll beat themselves up. They'll feel an immense amount of shame, guilt, they'll pound themselves with lots of hatred, which will probably only fuel you, the value of using that strategy as a way to cope with that pain again. So again, we want to get out of those cycles of shame. A bit of shame is okay. I'm not trying to say that, I've just punched someone in the face, and I'm repeating this pattern of violence and aggression that I learned from my dad when I was young, and he beat me up, and I used to bully other kids as a way to feel better about myself. Like, I'm not saying don't feel ashamed of yourself if you're doing some things where it's like objectively just wrong. Like, use the shame there just to create a value for you to continue working on yourself, right? But it can surpass a point where it gets excessive and it becomes detrimental. There's going to be a point where after you perform the behavior, you're going to have to bring in some compassion, understanding, just like you would to a young teenager that's next to you, that's just acted up, done something out of line. And even though they had a positive intention behind it, that they probably weren't even conscious of what it was, and they were just doing whatever they did to meet one of their basic human needs. You can go in there, give them, a good mix of some stern, honest truth that you can share with them, but also some love and compassion to be able to support them out of it, to guide them, to steer them away from that code, those rules that they're programmed by as a way to meet their basic human needs. So, just to finish off this video, I want to say, we don't intentionally sabotage ourselves. There's always a positive intention behind everything that we do. Be curious and seek to understand what that positive intention is, so that you can build more self-compassion and understanding for yourself. And then from there, you can create a beautiful space to be able to heal and to be able to guide yourself out of those patterns and those programs that you're running right now that don't serve you. Now, if you want to learn more about this, if you're interested in how you can break down these surface layer manifestations that you're struggling with, just below you can book in a free discovery call with me. This call is for you if you're serious, if you're ready about learning the strategies, the techniques that I use with my clients. You can find more information about that below in the bio. And I just want to say thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like this video. If you can relate to anything that I've said in this video, please just drop a comment below, and make sure that you subscribe to this channel, because I'm going to be sharing loads of other longer format content that's going to be super beneficial for people like yourself who are looking to heal, to grow, to transform, and do it in a healthy way. All right, so sending you all much love, and keep up the amazing work. All right, peace.